So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with us Sue Schilling, who's CEO at Alopecia UK. So, firstly, Sue, thank you so much for spending some time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Alopecia UK, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's really nice to speak to our local community. My name's Sue Schilling, as you rightly said. I'm the Chief Exec at Alopecia UK. We are the only national charity in the UK supporting people with alopecia. And what we do is provide support, community, and education to improve the lives of those people who are affected. And all three of those elements are really important. So the education piece is really important because hair loss can be a serious health condition. Everyone who's watching this video will see that I'm bald. I have a chronic long-term autoimmune condition. That's what causes my hair loss. So education is really important so people know the type of alopecia they've got and the options they've got. The support bit is really important because having a visible difference and not knowing why you are losing your hair can be really distressing. So
Yes.
psychological support, care, mental health, that's a really big part of what we do. And the community bit is important, a bit like this group that you are speaking to now, that sense of belonging, that knowing you're not alone in
Yeah.
something, that other people like you exist in the world is really, really important because despite alopecia being really quite common amongst the UK population, there aren't many women who are walking around like me in the UK, and there aren't many men who are walking around with no eyebrows and no eyelashes in the UK. And so there is a sense of difference that sits with
Yes.
alopecia. So, Alopecia UK, we bring people together, we educate, and we provide support.
Brilliant. Because it's obviously it's an obvious thing to say, but it's a very clear, visibly clear condition that you have. And is it? I mean, is it something that's growing or reducing? How is alopecia? What are the stats on that at the moment?
That's absolutely a brilliant question. So there are several types of alopecia. The most common one is male pattern baldness. We see a lot of men with receding hairlines,
Yes.
and that's relatively common around the UK, and it tends to be genetic. There are no stats on whether that is increasing or not. From my type of alopecia, which is an autoimmune condition, the statistics say that about 1 in 50 people in the UK will experience this type of hair loss during their life.
Yep.
And that commonly presents as a tiny bald patch about the size of a 50p that is usually in a hidden place on somebody's head. They can camouflage it with their natural hair,
Yep.
and within 3 to 6 months, the hair will grow back, and that's the full extent of their experience. That's a
Okay.
really common presentation of
Right.
alopecia areata. So we know a lot about that. It is not increasing in the UK to the best of our knowledge, but we know how it operates a bit. And then there are other types of alopecia that are bucketed under a headline called scarring alopecias, which means that when the hair falls out of your head, the follicle scars and there's no hope of regrowth
Right.
ever.
Yep.
And we know that some of those are increasing in prevalence across the UK, but we don't know by how much or how many people in the UK are affected. So
Right.
it's a really hard situation. There's a type called frontal fibrosing alopecia, which is that receding from the back. The mechanisms that make that work are different in women and in men.
Right.
And we know that for women that is increasing. So there's lots of
Right.
research going on to try and understand why that might be.
Goodness. Yeah. And you said you're the only organisation, which is it's surprising, but I guess the question I was going to ask is, do you see that as a benefit of a challenge or a challenge being the only one?
So I want to be really clear, we're the only national one.
Sorry, forgive me. Yeah,
There
great.
are other smaller
Thank
charities
you. Yeah.
doing smaller things around the UK, but they tend to be focused on giving providing a wig to a young person who's lost their hair, for example.
Yeah, great.
And then I've lost the thread of the other bit that you said after that.
Yeah, just interested. Being the only national charity for alopecia, do you see that as a benefit or a challenge or a bit of both?
I think I actually think it's a benefit from our reach perspective,
Yes.
and being visible in all different areas, and also our voice at the big tables.
Yeah.
So, our one of our big stakeholders, for want of a better phrase, is the NHS. We care
Yep.
massively about what they're doing and how they're serving. From a business perspective, I'm going to talk about clients, even though I would never call our community clients.
Yep.
But the NHS are serving our clients and failing them massively. So working nationally allows us to have a better voice at that
Yep.
table. Where it doesn't work so well for us is sometimes in funding, because there is a real focus in regions and in government and in
Right.
local communities to serve in the local community.
Yes.
So yeah, there's pluses and
Yeah.
minuses
No,
for that.
it's interesting because when you said that you're the only national one, obviously there are. I then became aware of there are lots, a number of charities that I guess compete is probably is the right word in many
Yeah,
ways. I'm
yeah,
sure they
and
collaborate too, but
they
there's got to
do.
be a
They
level
do.
of competition.
It's been really interesting transitioning out of the corporate profit making world into the not profit making world to see how that collaboration differs, and yet there is still a commercial mindset behind it.
Yes,
That we don't want to have two charities doing exactly the same thing in the same region. That's just direct competition and it's
yes,
silly and naive. Whereas two businesses in direct competition, that might be great for the community within which it works, because generally in charities there's only so much money to spread around.
yeah,
Spread it too thinly, no one's getting a good service.
yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. So if we start by looking backwards a little bit, could you tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one for you?
Yeah, my career background is banking. So I grew up, you can tell from my accent. I live in the northwest now, but I grew up in London. And so the obvious thing for somebody like me was just to go straight into the city. So that's what I did.
Yep,
I got what was probably akin to an apprenticeship at a big bank. And I stayed in the banking sector from that really, young 18-year-old. I didn't go to university. All the way through until my mid 40s, 27 years, I was in banking, working in London, New York, and Manchester.
wow,
Very 15 of those years were working on front office, buy, sell, equity or derivatives trading floors. And the other bits of the were working in all sorts of locations and doing all sorts of roles, operations, bit of front office sales, a lot of front office support, a lot of risk stuff,
yep,
which was great. And I worked in London, New York, and Manchester. So also great experience, big, broad business
yep,
experience. Um, and then in 2013, I experienced a mental health breakdown. My body broke, my brain broke, and I took some time away from work to understand what was going on. I went back to work, changed direction a little bit in banking, and did some more people stuff. And then eventually, I was program managing a redundancy program across several countries, and suddenly thought I was sitting in my office and suddenly thought, oh my God, I can put my name on this list. I could make myself redundant. And that's what I did. And then I spent a while, 5 years-ish, for the first 6, 8 months sloughing off what felt uncomfortable to me about the
yep,
sector that I was working with, that had had a really big values disconnect with me.
yep,
In the latter years, I retrained as a coach, so I have got a university qualification in personal and business coaching.
brilliant,
And I very consciously transitioned my career into a more coaching and third sector. I wanted to be more values led in my work. I also want to be really clear. I'm a sensible lady. I still kept a couple of days a week and sometimes 4 days, sometimes 3 days a week in banking because it was consulting and paying the bills.
yep,
While you transition, you've got to think about those things. How do I still
absolutely,
live? And then from that work, which was very much working with young people and doing some coaching in different charities, I then transitioned to be the head of learning and development at a wonderful charity who are just based over the border in Wrexham. And then on the back of that, this opportunity at Alopecia UK, a charity that I had leaned into because I needed help.
Yep.
came up, and it just seemed to like too much of a good opportunity to miss. So I guess the big story in that is I absolutely thrived in my banking career
Mm.
until I didn't. Um,
Yes.
and
Interesting.
then, yeah, and them being brave enough to say, I need to do something different.
Yep.
And then also thinking to myself, I need to learn something different. And I, be under no illusion, I needed to learn something different because I thought I'd failed in banking. I only
Right.
broke because I'd failed. And then by doing the coaching program, I suddenly learned, oh no, values, of course. So yeah, looking back, my journey into the charity sector is probably different than many people's,
Yep.
but it feels really purposeful and feels like a really deliberate move, which is great.
Wonderful. And did you come straight in as CEO, or did you did was
Yes and no. I joined with the job title development manager, but that was a very deliberate agreement between me and my predecessor as part of a transition for her to
got you?
step away and for me to step in.
Brilliant. And looking back over all of those periods, and obviously you mentioned the breakdown, but what are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome, both in your career and running Alopecia UK?
But it's a really good question. So I can reflect. So I went into the city in the late 80s, which says something about my age. Um, it was a really male dominated environment in a heavily boys' club
Right.
environment. So that was really hard, a big challenge. And I think
Yep.
lots of women of my age would say the same. You know, I definitely experienced verbal abuse. It was incredibly misogynistic, and you had to take, you had to understand and be comfortable in the uncomfortable,
Yep.
probably,
Yep.
probably at that stage. So that was definitely a challenge. Um, Changing sector. And
Yep.
driving my own redundancy. There's no two ways about it. There's a big pay gap between the
Yep.
private sector and the public sector. And making myself comfortable with that was a really big thing. Learning to like myself after that decision to leave banking and understand that I wasn't responsible for how I was how my body was responsive responding to stuff. I think they're the two big things because it's sort of like that health come positive mindset
Yep.
come adapting, reframing things was really important, a really important phase.
Yeah. Wonderful. It's interesting that you said, you know, um, leaving banking for, and then the learning the coaching process, or the helped you realize that it wasn't about you.
Yeah.
You didn't fail, because it's interesting, because I would imagine, outside looking in, I can't imagine anyone thinking that you'd failed anyway, if that makes sense. It's so interesting how insular our minds can be, that I doubt anyone around you, probably was seeing, you clearly high performing. um it's not a failure, it's just a reaction to circumstance, and yeah, if that makes sense. Sorry, go on.
That completely makes sense. And it was a massive realization for me that, I mean, I've got my blur on this background, but behind me over here is a sign that says progress, not perfection. Um, and that's because I'm a perfectionist. So those feelings and those thoughts that were about this isn't going well, I must be able to fix it. Why can't I fix it? They were
Right.
a really horrible negative cycle that I'd convinced myself if I can't fix it, I must be failing because I have these
Right.
massive perfectionist tendencies that are
Yeah,
unhealthy.
that makes sense.
Um, and so yeah, I think learning about how people think, learning about how the brain works, hearing from other people in a objective way and not taking it on the inside, just
Yes.
listening to what people say. Those were really important parts of my development. And I know I would not be in this role had I not done that work, which is now 12 years old. You know, I went on my
Yeah.
first coaching course in 2014. And it took a while for me to get to this stage.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I mean, I had a breakdown in my first business, but that was, I was always clear that was, um, the pressure of the work and how much it was taking my time. So, I was doing 100-hour weeks, which I
Yeah,
suspect in the banking world is not uncommon in itself, but it's certainly impossible for me to do it any length of time. And the reason for doing that was the pressure of the work. So
yeah.
without I don't think being too much of a victim, I didn't see it as my failure. I saw it as the failure of the organisation, if that makes sense, without blaming them. It
The
was,
reframing, it's
yeah,
really important.
yeah. No, fascinating. So, I mean, what would you say the biggest things you've learned over the same sort of period?
That's also a really good question, I think. What have I learned? I think that it's about, oh God, I don't know. For me, there's something about I get dragged into the weeds really easily. Um, and that's not my role. And
No,
I'm still learning that I don't like that in the same way that I did when I was a senior manager fighting for director role, thinking about is MD for me next, where you have to be in the
yes,
weeds. So yeah, I think that is something that I've really learned about myself. I like leading.
brilliant.
Um, the importance of strategy. We've just at Alopecia UK published our first ever strategy, which seems nuts, doesn't it, for a 20-year-old organization? But
Yes,
third sector, small growing,
yeah,
these things, I like planning and being ambitious and taking people on a journey with me. And this is going to sound big-headed, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think I'm a strong people leader, something that I wouldn't have said about myself in the past,
brilliant.
because of that, everything we talked about
Yes,
earlier.
yeah,
And I think I'm a strong people leader because I believe in that coaching works and that my style of I can be directive when I need to or when somebody needs it.
yeah.
But my style is less about that and more about helping people facilitate their own thinking. And I enjoy
Right,
that.
right,
Is that the sort
brilliant.
of thing you were looking for?
Yeah, yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned this idea, the challenge of being pulled back into the weeds, and I think many people struggle with it, primarily because I think we do a lot of work with this with sort of the SME business owners that we often work with, which is we're all taught culturally that success is based on hard work, which
Yeah,
is true, which is 100% true. To a certain extent, it's true, but with in terms of an organisation or a business, if we continue, and this is probably part of my personal challenge, is that if we relate success purely to how hard we work, and we run out of time, then we become the barrier to growth because
yeah,
no more time, no more resource. So
yep,
we do a lot of work. I do a lot of work with um, leaders and CEOs to to reframe it, and it's massive reframe of now how hard I can help other people work without it sounding
yeah,
like it's sort of some sort of Machiavellian thing. It's like my job is to lead 10 people, even if they only do, let's say, even if they were only half as successful as me or effective, I've still got
yep.
5 times more than me if I've got a team of 10.
Yeah, one of the best things that somebody said to me really early in my sort of first ever management role about the art of delegation was this thing about your admin is somebody else's development opportunity.
Yes.
Everyone thinks, oh, I don't want to develop, I don't want to give that to them. It's really boring.
Yep.
Well, actually, it's a window into the next step up on the career ladder.
100%.
So don't hesitate to delegate and to help other people have the opportunity to explore their capability and
Absolutely.
things they like.
And I think adding to that, because it's not directly sitting alongside that is what we like. I think it's Brian Tracy talks about the most successful organizations are the ones where most people spend most of their time doing the three things they really like and they're really good at.
Yeah,
And the truth of that for me is we you know we we like what we're good at. We're good at what we like. So, but that's different for each of us. So, something. The other reason we can not delegate is because we don't like it. We think somebody else won't like it.
Yeah,
Whereas they'll love it. You know, if you phone
yeah,
them up, oh, I can't wait to do a bit of admin
yeah,
or a bit of whatever it would be that I don't like. Um,
yeah,
and it's learning that, isn't it, and finding that out. But it's quite difficult if we're very people oriented not to give them stuff.
yeah. I think if there's something in leadership as well about being brave enough to recruit people who are not like you, which is
Yep,
a really smart thing we all know intellectually that's a really smart thing to do, but it's actually really hard
yep,
to do because we meet people a couple of times and then we're like, oh yeah, okay, we're going to give you this salary off you do, come on in. But then they probably don't like the same things that you don't like. And
yes,
so no one's doing that job well because nobody likes it.
absolutely.
So some of my biggest wins in the third sector have been where I've worked with people who I knew are different because they truly think differently than I do.
Yep,
And some of the roles that they can do, their superpower, people who are neurodivergent, often their
yep,
superpower is very different to mine. So I highly recommend anyone who's listening to really consider, where will somebody who has got a bird's eye view or somebody who can be hyper focused best
yes.
serve your business because there are real superpowers that you might not be leveraging on if you are afraid of working with somebody who is neurodifferent.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the challenges with recruiting somebody that's not like us often is that there is there's not necessarily hating, but there's a lack of liking, i.e., don't like them. Well, great, because they we need them to be different to you. So
Yeah,
if you believe you have different beliefs, values, and behaviours, it's perhaps not values, but beliefs and behaviours. It's likely that there won't be someone you would choose to socially engage with. That's fine.
exactly.
Um,
That's fine as well. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. The thing, it's interesting thing you said about getting stuck in the weeds is the other thing that I often talk to people about is if you imagine it's doing our job. So if the analogy of an organisation is a boat, a ship, um, lead our team being willing to help people pull the sails up at a point of emergency. We've really got to pull. Is great, but one thing I think we've got to understand as leaders is we might feel we're doing something great, but the people that doing that job are going, well, you should be steering it and working out where it's going. So while it's okay that you're willing to, that's not your job anymore. And it's getting comfortable with that I think a lot of people, including myself, have to get on with that. That isn't my job. It feels great in many ways, but we want that. A lot of people around us want to know that we know where we're going.
I think that's a really nice way to highlight the importance of the leadership role.
Yes,
But for those of us who naturally might rescue,
yes,
um, which is what we are talking about, that
yep,
rescuing behavior. Oh, I can see you're struggling. Let me help because I'm kind, I'm good for you.
yep,
Come on, I'll show you the way. Actually, that might A, it's doing them a disservice in terms of their
yes,
understanding how brilliant they are. Um, but B, we might be unconsciously damaging their relationship with their employer and us because we're not doing what they need. We're not showing them
absolutely,
leadership.
absolutely.
I think that's a really nice thing to highlight.
I think it helps a lot of people, especially people-oriented people, which it feels clearly that you are. Is that yeah, we're not actually helping. It feels like we're helping, but we're not in the longer term because
Yeah.
they're actually hope. Our job is leadership, direction, strategy, and if we're not doing that, the boat could be going into danger. Even though,
Yeah.
and if you want to take it further, it'll go even faster into danger if we help them pull the sails up. So
Yeah.
it's
And in terms of the boat analogy, then our job might be to course correct occasionally. You've
yes.
told me you've done this, it's not working. Well, let me help you course correct.
Yeah, and we can only do that from the back at the top. We can't do
Yeah.
that from right down with the people. So obviously you're trained as a coach and you've got a lot of coaching experience. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that is business, sport, or just life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, I think different coaches at different times. So since I did my coaching course, I've pretty much annually, maybe biannually, but frequently had a spell where I thought, oh, I can't fix this myself, or oh, I'm struggling with this, or I just need a bit of space. In fact, My most recent coach is a lady called Jolie Chisholm. I contacted, she's in the Northwest as well. I did all of my coaching online with her, and I used her for I'm rolling out the new strategy. I need to make sure I maintain personal boundaries because I like getting in the weeds sometimes, or that's a risk for me. So really noticing what do I need someone for. And I liked the coaching with her because she gave me a lot of space to be free, and be extroverted in my thinking and then help me distill it. So I really liked that style of coaching. At an earlier stage in my career, I worked with another really great coach called Catherine Smith, who's out on the Wirral. And her superpower that she brought to the coaching was structure.
Yeah.
My thoughts were all over the place.
Yep.
I didn't know what I wanted or what I needed next for my career. I was confused with this transition between banking and third sector. I'd done a while around, I felt conflicted. And she came with a set of tools that we worked through that showed me my superpowers, that helped me make decisions about what's
Brilliant.
next. Interestingly, though, the conclusions I came to at the end of that coaching are not where I am now, because the conclusions at that spell of coaching, which was about 8 years ago, I guess, was around I don't want to be the most senior leader. I don't want to be the one where the buck stops. I want to be
Right.
the super supporter.
Yep.
And I think that's okay. Yeah. So my favorite coach, I'm sort of a bit reluctant to say because I've worked with so many. But whoever is the one that you need most at the time, who provides what you
Great.
need. So I think there might be something in coaching that is about the person who's seeking a coach or a coach for their business, business coach, understanding what it is you're looking, what do you want?
100%.
What, and you got to get on with them. Do I like this person?
100%. In fact, I think the first one is that, like, do I get on with them? Is there some rapport? The interesting enough, one thing that I know we do as an organisation, I don't think I honestly don't believe many other business coaches do, is what we call an alignment at the start of a program, and that's aligning the business goals to the personal goals
Yeah.
of its owners and leaders. Where do you want to get to? Because everything can be aligned. It's
Yeah.
just understanding that if you've got more than one person and we've got you know, different goals, we can still align the business to deliver them. And I think that's, it's so important because coaching it is ultimately then about the individual where you want to get to, not
Yeah.
about you. Yeah, while we're coaching a business, we may be coaching a business, but we're coaching the people in the business. It isn't it doesn't have its own identity.
It's not, it is an entity legally, but it's
It
not
is, yeah.
a recipient
It's
of,
not whatever we want to. Yeah, absolutely. It's not a
yeah,
human being,
it's
but
not a person. Yeah.
not a person. And from whether it's from any of your coaches or any of the learning you've done, do you have any favourite quotes or sayings about business, success, life in general that you catch yourself using a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I've already mentioned the progress, not perfection thing.
Yes.
It's not like a known quote, but actually, in fact, when I was doing my coaching courses and writing my academic thesis, I mentioned earlier I didn't go to uni. So when it got to the academia bit, I was like, oh God, this is
Yeah. Yeah.
awful, all that referencing and stuff. So myself and another person on a later course became buddies.
Yeah.
She was an aspiring coach, and she is now a coach in the travel sector, Lucy Tulloch. And she sent me that poster because she's like, "This is you, Sue. You are not moving forward because you're procrastinating too much." So I really like that one. But the one that I lean into most, I wish I had it in front of me, is the Gandhi one, where it's where, your thoughts become your beliefs become your behaviors become your actions become your values.
Brilliant.
Because of that breakdown. I mean, I've definitely paraphrased that, and I might have had those things in slightly the wrong order, but I am driven by my values. If
Yep.
something doesn't, I'm really clear on what I won't compromise on and what I will compromise on. personally.
Yep.
And I'm happy actually, what I think is interesting about that is I'm happy to adjust my values to business language. So at the core of me is love. And when I talk to family, friends, I talk about a loving octopus. Everyone can come in, love, love, love. Come and be with me. I'm a people person. But actually, in business, what that means is I like rooted connections. I
Yep.
like people to understand and where we explore and spend time together and understand our relationship with one another. To your
Yep.
point, we don't have to love each other, but I like the rootedness. That's a
Yes.
really key value for me. So yeah, the Gandhi quote speaks to me
Brilliant.
because it feels really personal to me.
Yeah, brilliant. I'll search that one up actually because I'm not 100% familiar with that quote, but it's very much in line with a lot of things I personally believe in. So I
Oh,
look,
it's really nice. I mean,
yeah,
it's 3 or 4 sentences, but it's really nice. So yeah,
yes, but it is very. I mean, one of the things you said was thoughts create feelings, which is really interesting because we often work with people who say, look, if you want a feeling of happiness, then guess what? It'd be helpful to think some happy thoughts. Um, but
yeah,
guy I
mm,
worked with years ago, he said that we're like sausage machines. Forgive the non vegetarian reference, but we like sausage machines. He says if you want some garlic sausages coming out, it might be good to put a bit of garlic in the front end.
yeah,
Expecting a garlic sausage to come out when you've not putting any garlic in the front end is crazy. So
yeah,
if we want happy thoughts or successful thoughts, whatever they were, feelings, maybe it starts with some thoughts and
yeah.
just our thoughts. And similarly, so any favourite books or podcasts that you can recommend?
So, from a podcast perspective, I'm going to be honest, I don't listen to loads of leadership ones. It's sort of a conscious decision to use podcasts as a bit of downtime.
Yep, great.
I do tap into some of the third sector ones. So there is one called the Third Sector Podcast. There's another one called Charity. I think it might be called Charity Digital. I tend to connect to podcasts that are more about I'm listening to one at the moment. I wish I could remember what it's called. I think it's called Obscure. It's a BBC one. It might not be called Obscure, but it's
Yep,
about the brain and psychology and why we do things we do. So I'm really enjoying that. I dip in and out of, occasionally I listen to the Diary of a CEO, but mostly I don't because it feels too worky for me. And outside of that, I'm in the comedy zone. I like the comedy
good,
podcasts.
brilliant.
So.
Who do you listen to on those?
Absolutely love anything with I'm trying to think. I listen to Radio 4 comedy. I like
Yeah,
Just a Minute and
brilliant.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I think podcasts are brilliant. So I think they're a really great and modern way to pull information together. Oh, the other one I'm really
Yeah.
into at the moment is And the Rest is Entertainment, Richard Osman and Marina Hyde,
Ah, yes, yes. I've
which
heard. Yeah, I heard of that. Yeah,
which is really good. Yeah.
brilliant, brilliant. And just finally on the learning front, what would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far, Sue?
I think what I've learned about myself is that I'm capable of more than I ever thought I would be capable of. 18-year-old Sue who grew up on a council estate in South London didn't ever imagine that she would get a job in New York, or then when she came back from New York, say you don't want to be in London anymore and move to Cheshire and we talked about work a lot, but I was not sporty at school. I've run a marathon and I do different things. So I think I think I've learned that yeah, I'm I've become more intentional than I ever thought I had the capability to be. God, that's quite deep, isn't it?
Interesting. Yeah, no, it is brilliant. That's that. Yeah. And what do you think has caused you to be more intentional? What?
The hardship, the challenges.
Okay.
I think, I know that when I went into banking, it was pretty much let's float into this. My A levels are in maths, accounts, and economics. I'm either going to be an accountant or a banker. It was all a bit floating, floating, floating. And I think when things go wrong, it gives you a really good opportunity to take a good hard look at yourself. And
Yeah.
I don't think I had the skill set, because looking at yourself critically is a skill set. I don't think I had the
Yes.
skill set to do that, and I built the skill set to do that, despite working in organizations that really threw L&D at you. I don't think I ever trusted enough in those environments to learn it until I paid for some training myself and went on it and
Yeah,
was
yeah, no,
ready to absorb it.
it makes perfect sense. I mean, if you think about language, something's thrown at you, you tend to dodge and avoid.
Yeah,
If that makes sense,
yeah,
it's sort of like, yeah, and I mean, there is a great quote, and it's a little bit, but it is, what is it? When the pupil's ready, the teacher appears, and
yeah,
it's being ready for it. It's although you had all that teaching available, it wasn't the right time,
yeah,
and that's fine, and it's just
yeah.
picking the right time. So wonderful. So looking forward then, so what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
So from because you said you guys, I'm going to say I'm going to mention the charity again and just
Please,
say,
yeah, yeah,
so from the organisation, I mentioned earlier that we've just got our new 3-year strategy. Our goals are to reach a more diverse population because for certain types of alopecia, it is more prevalent in people who do not have white skin. And I know that our community does not represent people who do not have white skin completely or as
right,
wholly as I'd like. So there's a lot of work for us to do in that. It's also exciting because there's lots of research, innovation, and new treatments. So I think we want to grow. We know we want to grow. The economic landscape is a really big challenge for us.
yeah,
Ability to get money. And
yeah,
remember, when people give to charities, it's their disposable income.
yeah,
And if there's less disposable income, it can be harder for
yeah,
charities. And I think particularly a charity like us, where people are not dying, certainly long-term impact on life outcomes for many, many people. But we are competing with charities that either tug more at the heartstrings.
yeah,
In the UK, the pet charities are still really, really high. So it's like, how do you get that income in a fast changing economic
yeah,
landscape are probably the biggest challenges. For me personally, the future looks like another board role. I'd like to be a trustee at another organisation, so I'd like to volunteer in that. Um, Probably in healthcare. I'm quite enjoying in healthcare, or maybe in banking. There's a charity that I'm looking at the moment who have got an open role who support bankers through really tough time. Maybe that'll be a nice full
sure.
circle thing.
It sounds like
Um,
it, yeah,
and I'm looking to build some network into my life so that when I move on from my current mid 50s position to the next bit, my work portfolio can change a little bit,
yeah,
and maybe do some non-exec director activities.
yeah, brilliant, brilliant, wonderful. And so, final question: what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that?
Well, if it were me, I would say go to uni for the experience because there's no two ways about it. Not going to uni hasn't hindered my career in any
No.
way. But my God, I feel like I missed out on a really big life thing. Um, I think I would say the key is to trust yourself a bit more. Um, as an 18-year-old, you still have good ideas. Your voice matters. You might not believe it yet. Try not to overthink, that kind of
Yep,
stuff. You and actually 18-year-olds today have a lot of power. They are at the cutting edge of the digital age. They are digital natives. They know how to raise their voice and
yep,
and look at ways to do that constructively
yep,
in a positive way rather than a negative way,
yes,
because actually you could change the world because the digital world is going to do that. It's already doing that. And,
absolutely.
and if you become constructive, then your voice will be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more. When you see the viral nature of things, and that that online media gives us now, to really affect it from a small start. Wonderful advice for anybody. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been fascinating talking to you, and wish you best for everything you're doing in the future. And for anyone that'd like to get in touch with you or Alopecia UK, what's the best way of doing that?
Our website is alopecia.org.uk. My email address is sue.schilling@alopecia.org.uk.
Brilliant. Well, look, it'd be great to swing by another 6 to 12 months and just see what the next developments are. But for now, thank you
Amazing.
so much for your time.
Thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed it, and it's been really great to get to know you a bit as well, Chris. Thanks.
Me too. Thank you.